If the broader non-binary community would like to choose a different set that will be generally recognized by the public, I would have no problem switching over to those as long as it's not he or she.
Great. All right, I'm gonna address this one towards Tessie and Abby. What are some good ways to address negativity towards your child or children from friends or family? They give the example of dead naming or misgendering.
Okay, so for me, in my own personal experience, it varies. It can be as simple as being like, hey, remember, Toby doesn't go by she or that name anymore. Make sure, please use Toby and they, them, he, it's, yeah. And it could also go as extreme as, you know, ending relationships if that's necessary for keeping your family healthy and your child safe. And that's not often an easy one to do, but you know, if you really love and care about your kids, you're gonna make those sacrifices and changes as you need to.
Well, as a therapist, a big thing I talk about literally every day, all the time is boundaries. And understanding what are your boundaries with your relationship with your child, and what are your child's boundaries with the relationship with your family members, friends, etc. And something I will have the conversation of with parents is, your child is already predisposed to being bullied. Do you want to be their first bully? Do you want your dad to be their first bully? Do you want your friend to be their first bully? You get to decide in this instance who is going to harass your child. Is it going to be members of your own family or your friends, or is it going to be people you don't have control over? You have control over your boundaries. And so, of course, I'm not an advocate for, oh, just cut people off left and right, but I am an advocate for keep strong boundaries. Protect your child, protect yourself, protect your family. Let people know what your boundaries are and how they can choose to love you and your family. If they don't want to respect that, then that's a conversation for, do you get to be my kid's bully, yes or no? No? Okay.
All right.
Just wanted to add one little thing. Also, most people, when people are surprised when they get cut off suddenly. Most likely that person has been working, trying to do every other means possible before going to the extreme of having to cut somebody off. It's not a first reaction sort of thing, unless it's online. But that's a completely different subject. But in the meat space, in real life, it's not something that we do.
Yeah, for sure. Like, yeah, to piggyback off it a little bit, my experience was definitely, it was a friend that I was friends with for a very long time who reached out and said they absolutely would not refer to Toby by their preferred name and pronouns. And that was after conversation and trying to, you know, remedy that further, it was not going to change. So that was when that decision had to be made that this person is not safe for my family. So yeah, it's definitely not a light decision that is made, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say, because it's 7:50 and we're coming up on time, this is a really nice problem to have. Nice to have so many cards. What we're gonna do, any questions that we don't get to tonight, because for the sake of time, we are going to end at 8, because I'm not gonna hold everybody hostage. Make sure you're following the Dubuque LGBTQ+ Resource Network on Facebook, as well as the Multicultural Family Center, because what we'll end up doing, and I'll probably touch base with some panelists and like asking some of these questions. We'll do some videos, as well as I said, we're planning on doing more panels and like speakers and stuff. So there'll be more educational opportunities. This is not it. This is just happened to be kind of an on-the-fly thing. That being said, what are things that your cisgender friends have said that they think are helpful that are actually not? I knew I would get up and call you.
But you're so pretty. That's the number one thing. Oh, but you're so pretty. Oh, you make such a nice girl. How about we go get some makeup together? This idea that they're going to be corrective.
So my parents decided they were going to leave my life when I was very young. And something that a lot of my cisgender friends have said that they think is supportive is, oh, if your parents could see you now, they'd be so proud of you. No, they wouldn't. And that doesn't help. So it really is just assumptions and kind of forgetting that you know this person and just saying things that sound nice but don't fit the person's circumstances.
I'll add one to that, which is, oh, you're better off without them, which definitely minimizes the trauma when you lose people because of transitioning. So, yeah, it's a big one.
I got a couple that are specific to like trans men. You got a baby face though. Your body isn't that like masculine. I don't know if it would work. Things like that. Shut up. Leave me alone. I know I got a baby face.
All right, next question. Not a question, however, can you explain how androgynous is not always the same thing as non-binary or NB or transgender? And NB is a term that we use instead of non-binary sometimes.
So non-binary is a very fluid term. There are people who experience being non-binary as being somewhere between masculine and feminine or man or woman, people who experience it as just being way off in a totally different direction, totally unrelated to masculine and feminine. There are people who experience having all of the genders, people who are agender. It's an extreme umbrella term. And people under that umbrella experiment with many different femininities, many different masculinities, many different androgynies. These are even more fluid than non-binary. Now, I promised I wasn't going to bring up scripture, but we can all agree who the masculine figures are in scripture. How many of them wear pants? How many of them play football? And yet they're still masculine. You can go to a church and see a whole bunch of old white men wearing robes and bare feet in stained glass windows, but nobody would call them feminine. So non-binary is much more of identifying and also trying to figure out where you are in terms of these other, yes, socially constructed genders. And androgyny, femininity, and masculinity are fluid and also culturally specific.
I will add to that too. There's a big thing that I work on with people and personally with friends. A lot of folks believe that in order to be non-binary or gender non-conforming or genderqueer, you have to look either half man, half woman, or you have to have some sort of air of androgyny to you in order to be entitled to that pronoun or to that identity. And so understanding that gender identity and presentation and expression is so different, and a person can look as stereotypically female or male or whatever we would like to say as they want. They don't owe you androgyny in order for their identity to be valid. And so that's the big differentiation here, is nobody owes you what you expect out of, well, you're not either man or woman, so what are you? We don't owe you androgyny or femininity or masculinity. So that's the big piece on androgyny.
All right, I'm gonna go with 2 more questions because we're at 7:55. And as I said, I'm going to save the rest of them for future times. The next to last question is just basically how, and this is from a family member that wants to be supportive to their transgender youth in their life. How do you talk about the time before transitioning with family and friends? And I'm going to prioritize that with, I mean, not any of y'all can actually answer that one. Or yes, for sure.
So, having transitioned as long ago as I did, one of the wonderful things about that is that I've gotten to see the whole progression of my family, learning to accept over time. It was even about 2 years in where my dad was like, I don't know if I can ever accept you as my daughter, and that really hurt. told him about that like about 5 or 6 years ago, he was incredulous that he had ever said that. Because he couldn't believe that he could say that he would have ever said that. Especially saying how much it hurt me. You know, fast forward just a few years after that was said, you know, he was calling me my daughter, you know, his daughter, and using the right pronouns and all that stuff. And 20 years on, I'm having gender euphoria moments every once in a while when I'm hanging out with my family. We were grilling out for my birthday, and they were talking about when I was 2 years old, and I put my foot down. We were all on a swing. There were 2 of us on a swing that went back and forth, and I put my foot down and broke my leg. And I was 2 years old, and I had only just learned to walk. And here's my family, my brother, talking about it and saying, you know, she put her foot down and it broke her leg. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I love my family. Because they gendered me right. Like, when I was 2 years old, that story has been told for 40 years. And that was 40 years ago. That story has been told for 40 years. And my family is just right in stride with it. I'm not even asking them anymore. And it's just like, I don't think I ever actually asked them to do it historically in the past, but they do properly gender me. Another way to do it that I did when I first started transitioning was saying, when I was a kid, I still say this, so I say, you know, well, when I was a kid, you know, I was an Eagle Scout. You know, that doesn't say gender. So, you know, that's another way to kind of transition on that as well.
So I have a favorite joke about this, which is when I was undercover, is the way that I'll talk about it for myself. When I was a secret agent, spying in on the opposite gender, that's a great way that I'll use. I love humor as a way to cope with lots of things, so that's just a nice, fun way. But yes, like Laura, it's really nice to have those moments where it's like, because the gender was there the whole time. It may not have been what was represented and what was presented, but it was the gender that was there the whole time.
Yeah, and I'll say in short, like, find out from your family member what they prefer, because it's going to vary. We are not a single solitary unit. Personally, I actually use my assigned gender at birth when I'm referring to my younger self, and I use my dead name. Most trans people are not okay with that. For me, it just happens to fit. So it varies by person to person. It just go with what they prefer. So I'm going to go ahead and ask this final question. I'm going to have the panel go and run it down. So we pass the microphone to actually Toby. We'll start with Toby. We'll run it down. Just a quick answer. What are ways to help build community? Or what would you like to see happen in the Dubuque community?
I guess on the help build community part, reaching out to trans youth that you know, or anybody under the LGBTQ umbrella, and like trying to put together whatever kind of support, like the support groups that we have now. If they like just put out like a poll or something, like, hey, you guys want like some kind of like movie night thing that we do once a month, where we all get together? You guys want that? Maybe, I don't know. Like stuff like that. Like ask, see what the entire community of Dubuque wants.
I think more events like this. I think maybe next time you do a youth geared one.
A what?
One for the youth.
Yes.
Because I mean, kids are like my favorite people, so especially teens. And I think just finding all the ways, and especially given the climate right now, finding ways to lift them up and be supportive and make sure that they know that they are seen and they are cared about and they're loved, and you know, that even though it feels like it, and really on paper it looks like it right now, not all of the world is really against all of them. So.
Wholeheartedly agree with Tessie there. But also another thing, this was something that when I was doing a lot of the things for University of Iowa Healthcare, they would just have a small rainbow flag on their badge. That meant the most to me. So like on storefronts, things like that, just means that I don't have to, not just down the anxiety just a little bit, by going to places that have that and are openly welcoming and affirming. So will say I love going to Knockout Melts for that reason.
I will second the knockout melts and also just say support queer spaces. We don't have a lot of queer spaces and we have had some that have come and gone because the interest isn't there from the community and there isn't enough funding and et cetera, et cetera. We have monthly drag shows, we do have some queer-owned businesses, we do have queer spaces, but we definitely need more support for those things. And in order to do things like this and have more support groups and things like that, we need funding, we need community support, we need engagement. We have a lot of people who, it's amazing to see all the stuff online that is shared, but we don't have a lot of people who show up. And when they don't show up, then we can't keep doing this stuff. So please keep encouraging, like, show up, spend money at the queer places, encourage people to go, because as much as online community is amazing, the queer community dies out in cities when there isn't enough engagement.
I think a thing that doesn't necessarily get covered, we have to remember we are in Dubuque. And I think with the community, when we talk about community, the tendency for an LGBTQ QIA plus community is to be like, let's have parties, let's do drag shows, let's have Pride Festival. Those are good one-time events. I know that there are plenty of drag shows in Dubuque. There's a plethora of drag comparatively for the size of the town, I think. But they're not my thing per se. But that like I wrote on the road. But I do think that in a place like Dubuque, we need Dubuque-like type events. So, like, you know, one of the bases when I first got here, I was like, we need support groups. That's your fundamental foundation. If we can't be happy and healthy as ourselves, how the heck can we be happy and healthy with each other in a community? We need to have that first. I know some people will show up at the support groups and that's like, oh, we're gonna find community, and that works. It is good to expand from that and have more stuff, but we also have to remember that we have limited resources, not just in funds, but like people and the energy that each individual person has. This last week of dealing with stuff has been absolutely exhausting for us, utterly exhausting. There's not enough of us. And you know, so we need to understand that we only have so much in the way of interpersonal resources. And so having the support groups as a base is absolutely critical. And then you follow that with simple, like the movie night is a great night, or the game night we have every month, you know, the brunch, little things along the way that we can latch on to if we're available. And maybe we're not 1 week or 1 day and then we pull back, you know. Having those options, that's really important to have a kind of a spread, but starting with like, not have to be like out in public everywhere, hey, we're all here, there's a newspaper in front of us and there's cameras and video and like, you know, you just want to like kind of curl up and go away. And you know, I'm not very social myself like that. So I don't like seeing cameras. I don't want to be out there, all that. So like having some other community spaces where it's kind of just us, we kind of just have our same space, watch a movie, play games, whatever. So.
I want to follow up, showing up to LGBTQA events and spaces, and also to other events and spaces. We aren't just trans and non-binary, and that's all of our existence and the only thing we ever do. Go to other cultural events, go to library events, go to other musical shows. And if you don't have the spoons, if you're going to go with a friend and you just can't go, please say something because nobody likes being ghosted. And also, if a trans or non-binary person says, hey, this thing that's happening hurts me, please listen to them, because nobody just says that. They probably thought a lot about it before saying it to you, and that really helps build relationship and community too.
Just quick to add that they also trust you enough to even tell you.
Yes.
So the question was, how can we build community? And I think we've done a really great job of answering how can we as the LGBTQ community build community with each other. but I'd like to address the audience on how can we build community. And that's, the answer to that question is the same way you build community in any other way. We spend time with each other, we get to know each other, we listen, we do things for each other, I ask you for a favor, you ask me for a favor, we get to know each other as human beings, and that's how we build community, regardless of LGBTQ, regardless of race, regardless of gender, regardless of any other thing. That's how we build community. And I'd also like to encourage you, of any of you who are part of a community of faith, that you stand with us, because many of us are also people of faith or people of spirituality. And we want, those of us who want that, want a place where we can be welcomed. We want a place where we can feel accepted. We want a place where we can feel like we can go to get married. We can stand there every week and wear the clothes appropriate to our gender and not be judged and not be ostracized and not be felt like we need to change. So having those of you in these faith communities on the inside, building community means standing up for us and talking to people about, oh, hey, I just learned all of this really great information that I didn't know about these wonderful human beings.
All right. Well, thanks, y'all. And I'm going to add one more thing. Be allies even when we're not in the room. I'm going to cite Aura as an example of wonderful allyship for non-binary people. I get misgendered a lot and referred to as she, her. Aura is staunch, and I've heard other people say Aura straight up, she's they, and he uses they, and my friend Michelle does the same thing. Also so if you hear misgendering, if you hear dead naming, or if you hear somebody saying something awful or uneducated, assume good intent. Right? We're going to go with assuming good intent. They're probably not trying to do it to be mean, or they might be. But step up. And also, like y'all did tonight, show up. Part of the reason that we've not had educational stuff is there was a while where we were offering these sort of events and there would be nobody. Sarah's done this with me a long time. We've been doing this over a decade now, and there's nothing more discouraging than putting the time and resources and energy and money, oftentimes, into such events and not having them happen. So that's it, and that's, again, want to thank everybody. Thank the panel. I'm going to pass the mic to Sarah.
Yeah, I don't need a mic. I have 5 sisters, so we're pretty loud. But yeah, do try to come to the Pride Picnic and Block Party on the 3rd. It's going to be super fun out here. Like I said, the whole block. The committee has been, like I mentioned, working every month and raising funds to not just sustain the picnic, but for additional LGBTQ plus social panels, where we want to have a panel with our police department, and they're willing to do it. We want to have, so just know that your support in coming to Pride and donations and sponsorship really means a lot, because it's not just about the celebration. We do like a good party. We celebrate to educate down here too, but it's more than that. And so this has been an incredible committee to work with the last 9 months, the year before as well, and they're just really, and I thank them. I see Sarah over there on the committee, Allie's on our committee, Indy, of course, Annie, who else? Help me out here.
Yeah, who here is on the Pride
Marley,
Committee?
yeah, on the Pride, Pam, thank you, Pam. Just a great group of people that are really committed to not just the celebration, but for additional opportunities and socials for everyone to come, so.
Yeah, and I feel like we had a couple other board members come in while we were talking.
Yeah, Anthony Allen was
I'd
here.
like to say, as a board member
Yes.
of the MFC, I want you guys to know that this is always a safe place.
Yep.
I don't think any of mine. It's always
Yep.
a safe place. We welcome whatever you'd like to do. Just, let us know ahead of time. We will make the time and the space and the resources for you. So,
Yeah, this is Claudette B. is one of our board members, and also the head of our programming event committee, so
Yeah.
thank you for coming too, Claudette.
Yeah, and thank you to the board for allowing us to do this on such short notice. This did arise out of some anti-trans propaganda that was up there, and it wrote out the need for community education to counter that narrative. So we put this together in less than a week, and the board was supportive and awesome about it, and we appreciate it. So, and we appreciate this space. We have, I think, $120 a month that we spend on pizza to feed people that come to our support groups bi-weekly. And that sounds like a lot, but keep in mind that these are people who might not have eaten late earlier that day. And you can't, be emotionally safe unless your basic needs are cared for. So with that, I'm going to close this out for tonight.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Thank you, everybody.